Revenge doesn't start with rage. It starts with lists. While Amelia texted me from Pilates with the usual emoji-laden drivel, sweaty but strong flexed biceps medium light skin tone sparkles, I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and started writing. No, not poetry. I wasn't that kind of hurt. I wrote down everything she owned that was in my house. Not our house, my house. I bought it 5 years before she even knew who I was. Her name wasn't on the deed. Not because I had some psychic premonition she'd one day sleep with Richard, yacht mouth, Peterson, but because at the time, she said, "Oh, babe, it's your home." I'd never want to complicate that. Well, how thoughtful. The list grew quickly. Purses, 12, shoes, honestly, enough to start an outlet. Framed photos, half of which included Richard now that I thought about it. Skincare routines with more steps than an IKEA dresser, yoga gear, crystals she claimed absorbed negative energy. Spoiler, they did not. And her beloved Peloton. The Peloton got its own asterisk. I wasn't sure if I wanted to give it back or push it down the stairs and file an insurance claim. I decided to be generous, but not kind. Once the list was complete, I walked through the house room by room, checking it like I was preparing for an estate sale. Hers. I boxed everything. Labeled. Taped. Even alphabetized her books by author's first name, because I knew it would irritate her inner librarian. This wasn't catharsis. It was clarity. I didn't rage. I didn't throw things. I didn't scream into a pillow. I moved like an accountant doing inventory before a bankruptcy. Because that's what it was, really, a moral bankruptcy. And I was liquidating. Midway through taping the second bedroom drawers box, I found a photo album tucked behind our old nightstand. You know the kind, leather-bound, covered in dust, smug with memories. Our wedding photos. I stared at the one of us cutting the cake, arms linked, faces glowing with champagne and ignorance. She looked radiant. I looked like a guy who still believed in permanence. I closed it, shoved it in a box labeled trash or fire pit, and moved on. By the time she came home, the living room looked like a UPS sorting facility. She didn't even notice. She came in humming, dropped her bag, kissed my cheek like a flight attendant saying goodbye to a stranger, and floated off to shower. "Babe, can you order Thai?" she called from upstairs. Sure, I thought. Right after I finished shrink wrapping your self-respect. I ordered Thai, her usual, because I wanted her to have a nice last meal before the curtain dropped. The next day, I took a personal day. Told work I had a plumbing emergency. Not entirely a lie. Something was leaking. Just not water. I called a courier service. Asked if they handled confidential deliveries. They said yes, as long as it wasn't dangerous or illegal. I smiled. No explosives, I said. Just emotional ones. The guy chuckled. I gave him the address for Richard Peterson's office. Yes, office, at the financial firm downtown, and scheduled the drop-off for 11:30 a.m. I wanted it to land precisely in the middle of whatever self-congratulatory nonsense Richard had planned that morning. Probably something involving graphs and jargon and buzzwords like synergy and paradigm. I typed a note on heavy cardstock. Amelia loved that bougie paper and signed it in pen. Black ink. Neat, measured handwriting. Take what's yours. Mine is no longer yours. Then I slid the note on top of the first box and sealed it shut. 6 boxes in total. 6 little coffins for the pieces of a life she blew apart like confetti. At 11:20 a.m., I drove to the building across from Richard's. Parked in the visitor lot with my sunglasses on, sipping coffee like I was watching a play. And then, right on time, a white van pulled up to the front entrance of Richard's office. Out came the courier. Strong guy, bearded, confident. He wheeled the stack of boxes into the lobby like it was a delivery of toner cartridges. There was a receptionist behind the glass. She stood as the courier approached. I watched their exchange. Then I saw her point toward the conference room. Oh, this was better than planned. The courier opened the glass door and rolled the boxes right into the meeting room. Yes, the glass-walled meeting room. Through the window, I saw Richard, wearing a navy suit, smiling, probably explaining fiscal projections to a handful of bored junior analysts. Until the note caught his eye. He picked it up, read it, then looked up directly into my eyes. He didn't see me, but I saw him. And oh, the way his face dropped? You couldn't buy that reaction. Not with all the yachts in the world. One of the boxes fell over. Papers spilled. Lipsticks, scarves, one of Amelia's photo albums, the one with him in it. I could almost hear the slow clap of poetic justice from across the street. And just like that, Everyone in that room knew. Amelia's new chosen one was holding her past, her secrets, and her scandal in front of an audience. It was subtle, elegant, nuclear, and it was only the beginning. When you throw a stone through someone's glass house, the first sound isn't shattering. It's silence. That kind of heavy, stunned hush that falls right before the noise. A beat of stillness when everyone in the room realizes something's happened, but their brains haven't caught up to their eyes yet. That was the silence I saw across the street, watching Richard Peterson cradle Amelia's breakup gift like it was ticking. I stayed long enough to see the junior associates pretend not to stare. One of them actually turned his laptop screen just slightly toward Richard, as if he was protecting sensitive data from a man whose mistress's perfume still clung to his collar. Then I left. Not in a hurry. Not smug. I just drove away. There's a dignity in knowing you got the last word without ever speaking it. But I didn't even make it back to my driveway before my phone rang. Caller ID, Amelia. Showtime. I let it ring. Then a second time. Then again, text message this time. What did you do? That was it. No punctuation. No apology. Just the text equivalent of a panicked whisper in a courtroom. I didn't answer. Not out of revenge. Out of courtesy. She deserved the full experience of this unraveling, uninterrupted. I parked in front of the house. She wasn't home yet, which was just fine. I wasn't in the mood to witness live performances today. Instead, I walked inside, grabbed a cold drink, and sat in the living room. Sunlight came in through the windows like nothing had changed. The house was calm, tidy, still full of her absence. Not her things, those were gone. Just her. Funny how you can live with someone for years, then realize in a single week how little of them is truly present in the home. Her laugh used to bounce off the walls. Now it was just space. Her scent used to linger on pillows. Now it was detergent. Neutral. Lifeless. Another call. Still her. Still no answer. I muted the phone and sat back. By 1 p.m., I had 3 missed calls, 6 texts, and a voicemail that started with "Logan, please," and ended with the sound of her hanging up. In between, there was something about workplace embarrassment, irreparable damage, and overreaction. Overreaction. I actually laughed at that one. Out loud. Full belly. Because nothing says minor misstep like renting a hotel suite with your husband's golf buddy and asking for the room to be prepared romantically. Amelia came home at 2:07. I didn't rush to meet her. I waited. She walked in like someone returning from a battlefield that didn't go their way. No makeup. No smile. Hair in a loose bun that was supposed to say, "I'm busy," but really said, "I'm losing control." She saw me sitting in the living room. We locked eyes. And there it was again, that silence. Not the angry kind. The kind that's already given up. I need to explain, she said softly, setting her purse down like a white flag. Don't, I replied, with a tone that carried more weight than volume. Really, don't. Amelia sat down across from me on the edge of the couch, like the furniture might throw her off if she relaxed too much. I was going to end it, she began, the same way a politician starts an apology press conference. You didn't, I cut in. You just ran out of hotel nights. Her lips parted like she had a defense queued up. Then she closed them again. Smart move. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. Calm. Not cruel. Just done. Let me guess. You weren't thinking clearly. It was a mistake. You didn't mean to hurt me. You love me. You just lost sight of things. I've heard it all before. Just not from you. She looked up, her eyes moist but not crying. Not yet. Maybe she thought tears would come later, when the consequences felt more real. But this wasn't a soap opera. It was a reckoning. I didn't think you'd find out, she said. Now that got a smile out of me. The most honest thing you've said all week. She inhaled like she wanted to start a speech, but I raised a hand. I don't want you to explain. I don't want you to cry. I don't even want you to say sorry. You made a choice. Now we're both living in the consequences. I can fix this, she blurted, suddenly desperate. We can fix this. It was one mistake. Stop saying we, I snapped. You cheated. You lied. You chose someone else. There's no we in that equation. There's you, and Richard, and 6 boxes that say return to sender. The silence after that one wasn't peaceful. It was brutal, like cold air flooding a warm room. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. But you did, I said, rising to my feet. And now you have to live in that truth. You don't get to skip to the redemption arc just because it got awkward. She stood, too. tried to reach for my arm. I stepped back. You'll get divorce papers soon, I said, calm as ever. Sign them. Or don't. It won't change the outcome. Her face finally cracked. The first tear slid down. I didn't flinch. Because some things don't deserve a reaction. And she already got my best ones. It didn't take long for Richard to reach out. He's the kind of guy who thinks every crisis can be solved over steak and medium-bodied red. He sent me a text the next day. Let's talk. Man to man. My treat. Morton's at noon. Oh sure, why not? Nothing says healing like overpriced filet and betrayal sauce. I showed up 15 minutes early and asked the hostess for a booth in the back. I wanted to see him coming. He walked in wearing a suit so tight it looked spray-painted. Smile preloaded, handshake extended like we were long-lost frat bros. Logan, he said with forced warmth. Let me just say, you can skip the opening act, I said, motioning to the seat. I'm here out of morbid curiosity, not friendship. He sat, cleared his throat, and launched into the performance. Look, man, things got complicated. Amelia and I, it wasn't supposed to mean anything. We didn't plan to hurt you. That's the best you've got? I asked, eyebrow raised. After months of hotel bills and secrets, you go with wasn't supposed to mean anything? That's your closing argument. I know I messed up. No, Richard, I said, leaning in. You didn't just mess up. You picked up another man's wife and carried her into rooms I paid for, then showed up at my dinner table with your mouth full of my life. He looked down. I'm sorry. I don't care. That caught him. You think I came here for closure? I continued. No. I came to watch you squirm, Richard, and maybe to tell you what's coming next. He looked up, confused. I smiled. You'll be receiving a formal letter from your firm's ethics committee next week. Not from me. From someone else. Seems one of your junior analysts didn't appreciate you banging your colleague's wife in the office suite on company time. I leaned back. And your wife? Rachel? She's already been served. With pictures. Richard's mouth hung open. Oh, you thought you were just in a love triangle? Buddy, you're in a hexagon of destruction. Good luck. Check, please. Over the next week, it was like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. Amelia stopped pretending. Her social media went dark. She stayed with her sister, apparently, though I didn't ask or care. Richard got temporarily reassigned, which in corporate speak is the long walk toward the plank. His wife changed her last name back on LinkedIn and uploaded a photo of her smiling with a glass of champagne and a caption that read, "Starting over never tasted so good." Their scandal hit the office grapevine like gasoline on dry brush. I got flowers from 3 women in the building and 2 offers to grab coffee whenever you're ready. Nice. But I wasn't ready. I wasn't broken either. I was freed out. I sold the house. Too many ghosts. Bought a condo downtown. Sleek. Quiet. Mine. One night, while unpacking my kitchenware, what little I had left, I got a knock on the door. It was Amelia, in a coat too thin for the weather, holding something behind her back. Hi, she said. I didn't invite her in. Just leaned on the doorframe. I heard you moved, she said. I did. She held up a box. My old watch. A gift from my dad. I thought you might want this back. I took it. Not from her hand. I let her set it down on the step. Thanks. She nodded. Looked like she had more to say. I didn't ask. She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked away. No drama. No tears. Just quiet. And you know what? It was enough. Weeks passed. I found a rhythm. Work, gym, weekends spent reading instead of resenting. Then came a letter. Real paper. Real ink. No return address. I opened it, expecting drama. Instead, it was from Rachel Peterson, Richard's ex. Short. Elegant. Vicious in its calm. Thank you. You don't know me, and I don't expect we'll ever meet. But your little act of delivery in the conference room? Priceless. You gave me closure, clarity, and, eventually, custody. Take care. R. I laughed out loud. Honest, full laugh. First time in months. Sometimes, revenge isn't fire. Sometimes, it's paper cuts. There are 3 kinds of people who cry in the break room. 1. The intern who realizes Excel isn't just like Google Sheets. 2. The guy from IT who finally got around to reading his divorce papers. And 3. My personal favorite. The middle manager who just found out the Christmas bonus is a keychain. Me? I don't cry in the break room. I brew my coffee, I steal someone else's creamer, and I smile at the one coworker who still thinks my jokes are funny. That's about it. So, It should come as no surprise that on that fateful Tuesday, the Tuesday that would reset the tectonic plates of my marriage, I was doing just that. Brewing coffee, dodging eye contact, and wondering how a man ends up craving something as simple as silence. Silence at home was rare. My wife, Amelia, had a voice like champagne, bubbly, expensive, and usually reserved for other people's parties. She used to talk to me with that voice. Now, she mostly used it for her Pilates instructor, her stylist, and the group chat she thought I didn't know about. Still, I was loyal. The dog kind of loyal. The eat the same food every day and still wag your tail kind of loyal. Married 9 years, never strayed, not even emotionally. Not even during that time Amelia started sleeping on the couch because my snoring was a war crime. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That Tuesday started with a flat tire, followed by a spilled coffee, followed by a text from my wife that read, "Hey babe, don't forget we're having dinner with the Petersons tonight. Be on time this time. Love you." I read that text 3 times. Not because I was sentimental, but because I was searching for some sign she meant it. The love you at the end? It felt like the kind of thing you write out of habit, like signing a work email with best, even though you don't mean it. Dinner with the Petersons was always code for, you'll sit there, smile like a hostage, and listen to us pretend our lives are perfect. Richard Peterson was a smug, collagen-filled windbag who talked about his yacht like it was a rescue dog. And Amelia, well, Amelia used to find him annoying. Lately, she just found him hilarious. I didn't question it too hard. Not then. Not yet. After work, I picked up a bottle of wine, the expensive kind, not because I was trying to impress the Petersons, but because I needed something to drink while tolerating them. That's how this story starts. One ordinary man, one boring Tuesday, and one perfectly chilled bottle of Merlot walking into a dinner party he should have canceled. The truth was out there, but it hadn't found me yet that I arrived precisely on time. Not out of enthusiasm, mind you. Just the sheer survival instinct of a man who knew showing up late to this dinner would buy him an earful of passive-aggressive disappointment, and I already had a full pantry of that at home. Their house looked like a Pinterest board that got a little too full of itself. White walls, polished concrete floors, and enough houseplants to qualify for rainforest status. Richard opened the door in a linen shirt, unbuttoned just far enough to remind you he did CrossFit. His handshake was firm, his cologne loud, and his smile, practiced. "Logan, my man," he said, like we were frat brothers and not just two people who tolerated each other for the sake of appearances. Come in, come in. Amelia's already inside. Brought a little something special for the evening." Special, huh? That sentence pinged the radar, but I shrugged it off. Maybe she brought one of her desserts that look like art, but taste like compressed air. Or one of her long-winded stories from yoga class, where Brad from Vancouver always seems to make an appearance. I walked in, and there she was. Amelia, in a black dress I hadn't seen before, sipping wine and laughing at something Richard had just said. Laughing like her face remembered muscles I hadn't seen in months. She looked happy. At me? No. Around me. "Hey, babe," she said, barely glancing my way. No kiss. No touch. Just a chirp, like a parrot acknowledging its owner. Dinner went exactly how you'd imagine. Richard monologued about market trends like anyone at the table asked. His wife nodded like a trained bobblehead, and Amelia chimed in every few minutes with just the right amount of flirt to keep the energy humming. I sat there, fork in one hand, smile in the other, replaying the same mental footage. Her laugh, the dress, that look in her eyes. And something inside me whispered, "You're not the one she dressed for." After dessert, Amelia disappeared into the kitchen with Richard to grab the espresso, even though they were gone for 10 minutes, and came back with exactly 0 cups. I didn't say a word, because I wasn't ready yet. Because denial is a warm, fuzzy straitjacket, and that night, it still fit. But the seams were about to tear. I always thought betrayal would announce itself with sirens. Some dramatic reveal. A lipstick stain. A text left open. Maybe I'd walk in on something straight out of a bad cable drama. But no. Turns out betrayal looks a lot more like a digital receipt. Let me back up. It was the day after the Peterson soiree, a Thursday. My head was still humming from too much wine and too little sleep. Amelia had left early for Pilates, and I was home, nursing black coffee and a suspicion I couldn't quite name. That's when I saw the email. She'd left her laptop open. Unusual. Amelia was more protective of her laptop than the nuclear codes. But there it was, glowing on the kitchen island, screen still on. Outlook tab open. I wouldn't have looked. Shouldn't have looked. But I did. Subject line, reservation confirmation, Grand Marigold Hotel. It was from a week ago. A 2-night stay. Executive suite. King bed, champagne service. And this part really warmed the heart. Special note. Please prepare the room romantically. We are celebrating. It was addressed to her personal email. Not ours. Not mine. But the name on the reservation? Richard Peterson. I blinked at the screen like it would change if I stared hard enough. Like maybe Richard was taking his wife and Amelia just happened to help? But I clicked the receipt. And there, in high-resolution heartbreak, was the detail that nuked any doubt I had left. Guest names, Amelia Cross and Richard Peterson. Celebrating. Of course. Because nothing says celebrate like defiling your marriage in high thread count. I stood there, staring at the screen, not breathing, not blinking. And in that moment, something inside me didn't break. It shifted, like steel locking into place. Because here's the thing about betrayal. It hurts. Yes, it sears through your bones like a blowtorch through butter. But after the burn, you don't collapse. You calculate. And right then, I started thinking, not about confronting her, not about begging or yelling or crying. I started thinking about packing, and about how, when the moment came, Richard would finally get a package of his own. 6 months after the world tilted, I got one final box in the mail. No note, just Amelia's wedding ring. Tarnished. Heavy. I held it for a moment, then walked to my balcony, looked out over the skyline, and tossed it into the river below. Not with drama, not with hate, just release. Somewhere, Richard was probably sipping boxed wine in a studio apartment, trying to rebuild his life from the ashes of an ego fire. Amelia was likely explaining her growth journey to someone who didn't know she was once unfaithful and would swear she never would be again. And me? I was whole. Not healed overnight, but whole. And in the end, I still had what mattered. My self-respect, my peace, my name. And unlike Richard, my mail never comes with a note that says, take what's yours. Because what's mine stays mine.